Everybody likes to dunk on British food, and for the most part, I think that it's very wrong. British food has fantastic dishes and really enjoyable stuff if you just give it a try, but school lunches is where I'll concede. Yes, we do have some awful food. Back when I was in school, the slop that they would serve up was unfit for even the most hardened criminals and serial killers. They'd give you this divided plastic tray of a certain color, and then the dinner lady would regurgitate what I imagine was her breakfast onto the plate and call it a day. But there was one thing that we always look forward to, one shining light in this dark hell of colony catastrophe, and that was the cake. The sheet cake that you got covered in a little bit of custard. Now that was an absolute banger. These slapped hard. But today, morepat is going to explain to us exactly why you're not to trust your school lunches. Here we go.
What was the best thing that your school lunch ever served?
Well, like I said, it was these lunch cakes. I don't know if it was just the icing had 7 metric tons of sugar in it, or the fact that the little sprinkles on top had nice colors and it made my brain happy. But this was the one thing that I'd always look forward to.
Seriously, write your answer down in the comments below. I'm just really fascinated by this topic. Because at my school, when I was growing up, the cream of the crop was known as cheesy dippers. They were literally just
we wouldn't get none of that.
Cheese melted on them and meat sauce to dip them in. Any other schools out there have those or something similar to that? Because kids went crazy.
Absolutely not. We'd get bread and mashed potatoes. We were made to feel thankful for it.
For these things. They showed up on the menu like every other Wednesday, and the line was out the door for them. And it always confused me because, you know, they're just breadsticks and sauce. But little did Pat realize
there's
at the
nothing
time
else
those
good.
Cheesy dippers, as well as all the other hot dogs, pizzas, and mystery meats that lunch lady Brenda was slopping down onto my plate, were part of a grand conspiracy. A cascade of lies and backtalk. So eat up while you can, my friends. After today's episode, you'll never look at lunchtime the same way again.
All right, here we go. What's it gonna be? I did switch to bring in pack lunches when I hit middle school, and I'd basically just bring in a pack of crisps, a Sammy, a chocolate bar, and my mum would throw in some fruits. I'd never touch them
Internet.
though.
Welcome to Food Theory.
I'm excited.
Is now in session. That's right,
Lovely.
friendos. It's back to school season, and with it comes the return of lunchtime. The time when cliques are formed that can make or break your school reputation. Or, you know, you could always be like me and reject the entire social hierarchy, instead forcing yourself to sit at each individual lunch table one at a time as part of a grand social experiment to see which social cliques respond most angrily to an outsider encroaching on their territory.
I didn't do that, but I was that kid that was kind of just like, would like float between friend groups that wouldn't just like stay with like 5 people. I'd kind of like float to one and then float to another and then float to another.
True story. That was my 8th grade science fair project. The self-classified sporty girls wound up being the worst. They threw food at me and they physically tried to lift me out of my seat for the entire hour in an attempt to get me to move. But
oh my god, no way, really?
Science moves for no one. I locked my legs under the bench and held on for dear life. And you know what? It was worth
really?
it. Them
That's
throwing
insane.
Food resulted in me getting some free fries that day. And eventually, I got myself a blue ribbon at the Ohio State Science Fair. So get dunked on there, Mallory.
Well done,
Courtney,
morepat.
Bethany, Catherine with a K, and other Bethany. Today, though,
Yeah,
we're
fuck
not
you
going to talk
guys.
about the social politics of the lunchroom. We're talking about the food politics of the lunchroom. You see, school lunches have been in the news a lot over the last few years. The USDA recently increased funding for school meals. Some states, like Maine and California, are now permanently offering free school lunches for everyone. And of course, the ever-present topic of whether school lunches are healthy enough for kids. Might seem like an odd topic to be a hotbed of controversy, but school lunches...
To be fair, school lunches might actually be better than whatever they're getting at home. If you live in like a low-income household, you know, you can't really get that many fresh fruit and vegetables, it's probably a good idea to include that in the school diet so that you get at least a little bit of something.
And their nutrition are actually one of those issues that have a direct influence on how the next generation grows up. And while I think everyone would agree that healthier is better, the history of school lunches shows just how many competing interests exist in the competition over what little Jimmy is cramming into his pie hole come noon 30.
Okay, so this video is obviously very America-centric. I'm British, and this one celebrity chef, Jamie Oliver, spearheaded a campaign against processed food in school lunches. He tried to show kids how disgusting and terrible these chicken nuggets are, showing them what they're made of, to try and get them to change their mind about chicken nuggets. But he wasn't very successful.
Our very own patty. Now, who would still eat this?
Because all the kids would still eat it anyway. Because kids don't really care. And look at the depression on his face. Absolutely hilarious.
Time between phys ed and algebra. Case in point, this. A tomato. It's a fruit, right? I think that's pretty well established by now, but for decades
I love
when
tomatoes.
I was growing up, people were confused about that, constantly thinking that it was a vegetable. And their confusion was entirely justified because, you know what? It was. So was ketchup. So was pizza. Vegetable, vegetable, vegetable. So how was pizza possibly considered a vegetable? Well, it all began
Because it has
here
tomato
in the
sauce on
school
it?
Cafeteria. So line up and hold out your tray. I'm about to serve up some tasty history so you can start to understand the conspiracy behind the slop that students
It
get
was
served.
Big
See, the
Pizza that
origin-
did it. They wanted to sell their pizzas to schools, so they tried to lobby the government to classify pizzas as a vegetable because technically they had tomato sauce in it.
of America's nationwide
Is that right?
school lunch
I
program
hope that's right.
dates back to 1946 when it was considered to be a matter of national defense. No joke. Well, it's true that
What?
some schools in the US did offer their students food as early as 1894. It didn't become something that public schools were legally required to do until the passage of the National School Lunch Act. This was right after World War II. And during the war, they found that a large number of enlistees who could have otherwise been eligible for service ended up being disqualified due to their poor nutrition. Yeah, apparently the thing that got the government to stand up and make feeding kids a priority was realizing that emaciated Americans wouldn't be able to die for their country. So instead they
There's nothing more patriotic than making sure that your kids are fed so that they can go and shoot some people in a foreign country that you invaded so you can make money on the oil that you'll steal from
decided to
them.
feed them up and then ship them out. But regardless of the reasons that actually got the thing to start, people immediately drew a liking to it. Parents across the nation were more than happy to take a break from slapping together some PB&Js, so school lunch programs got bigger throughout the rest of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There was the school breakfast program, the child and adult food care program, the special milk program. You know what? I'm just gonna come out and say
Wait, why is that bag so wet and gross?
something I inherently don't trust about the phrase special milk. But not only did
Oh, we used to have that in our school as well. We used to have a special part of our first school, when I went to first school, where we'd stop a lesson halfway through because the milk delivery came, and we'd go and stand in the hallway and drink an entire bottle of milk and then go and continue.
like it, the government did too, because it solved another problem that they had. Namely, that the US had itself a surplus of domestic produce and didn't exactly know what to do with it all. I've actually
I'll have
talked
it.
about this in a previous theory about America's
I like
secret
cheese.
supply of underground cheese, which, if you haven't watched, make sure you check out that episode after this one.
Underground
Basically, school lunches
cheese?
were one place that they could offload a bunch of that extra cheddar. Feed kids while also using up your surplus cheese. Two birds with one Swiss. And cheese was hardly the only example of this. I mean, I don't want to say that the school lunch program was just a convenient dumping ground for all the extra unsold food that nobody wanted to actually buy. I don't
That's not a really bad thing, though. I mean, it's got to be put somewhere, right? Might as well be put in the
say it,
kids.
but you know, a lot of times throughout the history of the school lunch program, it kind of ended up being true. For instance, when the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture, was faced with that dairy surplus, they initially bought the cheese, right? And put it into the caves, and eventually it became part of my cheesy dippers. Fine. But then they had a realization.
Put it into the
Hey,
caves.
Those cows that keep producing so much milk that we can't figure out what to do with? Oh yeah, they're also beef. Suspicious look over at the cows, and thus the whole herd buyout program of the 1980s was born. School lunches suddenly took the form of burgers and pizza and anything that could make use of beef and or cheese. So
Okay, there's other things that you can do with that. You can make a nice spaghetti bolognese, you know, get some meat in that. There's some healthy things. You can make stews. You can make other things that aren't pizzas and
where then
burgers.
does the school lunch conspiracy come in?
Actually, you could probably make them
Nutrition.
easier.
You see, even though surplus was certainly one driving factor dictating what was and wasn't getting served as a part of school lunches, the other was nutrition. School lunches had to at least be nutritious. And because meal regulations still stated that kids had to be served 2 full servings of vegetables with their school lunch, everything was just hunky-dory, right? Right? Well, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that those who set the definitions around food don't always do so in an impartial way. I mean, our vision of a healthy diet used to look
Gotta
like
make
this,
the
with
money.
grains being the foundation of a healthy, balanced meal. Conveniently, it was also the cheapest type of food to serve up.
I have learned that the food pyramid is kind of
I mean,
alive.
I've already done a whole video about the various competing forces that got the food pyramid to look the way that it did, but suffice it to say, for a long time, the guy
always lobbying.
eat more carbs. Come to think of it, the food pyramid was created by the USDA,
Yep.
the same USDA that was responsible for the school lunch program in the first place. So the same organization that comes up with the
It says fats, oils, and sweets use sparingly, but healthy oils are very important for a good, well-rounded, nutritious meal.
also gets
And fats are really important too. Things like healthy fats. You got different types of oils and nuts and all of this different types of healthy fats. Chia seeds, they're
Come up
healthy.
with the nutrition
They're
rubric that
nutritious.
those lunches need to be graded on. Surely no potential for bias or conflict of interest.
They're high
there,
calorie,
right?
though.
Well, in 1979, USDA guidelines were loosened to the point that nutrition standards for school lunch items only had to meet the minimum requirements rather than the stricter requirements of being quote-unquote officially healthy. So how minimum is a minimum standard?
So what are your school lunches like? Well, they don't have to be officially healthy, but we have decent
One USDA
standards.
official is said to have explained it as follows, quote, "If a candy bar has only one nut in it, we feel it is above our minimum nutrient standards." In other words, things ain't
What?
looking too great. But at the very least, they still had that 2-vegetable rule, right? That ensured that even though a peanutty Baby Ruth might have gotten served up as a side next to your mac and cheese, you at least have some green beans and carrots on the plate to balance it all out. Well,
Oh, but they
let's
probably
pull up what I
taste
said a few
disgusting.
seconds ago.
They
Quote,
probably boil
"Kids
them."
have to be served 2 full servings of vegetables with their school lunch." Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to play a game. You see, that's what the regulations said, except it presents a problem. Produce, it's expensive. It's expensive to store at the correct temperatures. It doesn't keep for very long periods of time. It takes varying times to prepare, and it needs to be shipped under proper conditions, usually within specific seasons. Remember, we're talking about technology from the late
Time for some
70s
frozen
and early
veg, boys.
80s to get all this done. As if that wasn't bad enough, surveys of school lunch waste repeatedly show that vegetables are the item that kids leave unused and throw out the most often. So in essence, what you're dealing with is the food item that's generating the highest cost and also has itself the lowest return. It's
I know what's gonna happen here. They're gonna mix it in with the other stuff. So they're gonna classify the tomato sauce as a vegetable and say that the pizza, therefore, is classified as a vegetable and a pizza is a serving of vegetables. That's how they're gonna do it, aren't
only
they?
there because parents expect healthy vegetables to be offered to their kids by the school. It has to be on the menu. The regulations say it. Then again, words can be open to some creative interpretation. So if you're a government agency in the 80s,
sauce
whose
could be
funding
a
has just been
serving
slashed
of
30%
vegetables
by the
that has
president,
tomatoes
you're
in it.
looking to save money on school lunches while still technically meeting the letter of the law. Where in this sentence do you think there might be some wiggle room? That,
Vegetables!
my friends, is the game we're playing today. I'll give all you budding politicians a second to think it over. And while you're
Or full? I guess what classifies a full serving of a
taking that
vegetable?
second to come up with an answer, make sure you subscribe to Food Theory. No one else is serving up the
Make
bitter
sure you
truth about
subscribe
the
to more
lies
patterrz
in
as
your
well,
food.
and also Food
Subscribing
Theory.
is
He'll be
free,
linked in the
and as we all
description.
know, brain food is best food. It's also 0 calories. All right, you got your responses ready? Great.
Wait,
Solution
brain food
number
is 0
one,
calories?
The word right here, vegetable. Vegetable already
knew
has
it!
itself a
I was
nebulous
right.
definition, which is an episode to itself on another day. But suffice it to say that the administration at the time was eager to use that murkiness to their own advantage in an attempt to meet the letter of the law in technicality, but not necessarily in spirit. The USDA
you put ketchup
tried
on a
to list
burger,
the
it's a
ingredients
serving of vegetables.
condiments to help boost up the number of vegetables that were being served to the kiddos in school. Ketchup? Well, if you read the label, it says tomato right there. That's a vegetable, right? Count it. Pizza? Well, that's not just any sauce, my friend. That is tomato sauce. Count it. Packets of relish. That right there, friends, is a serving of cucumber. And that is the
Oh
story
my
of how
God,
ketchup
that's
almost
disgusting.
became a
That's so
vegetable,
bad.
almost. If it seems to you like this school lunch program strategy was a wee bit on the cheaty side, you're not alone. It became a national debate that culminated in Pennsylvania Senator Henry J. Heinz III. Yep, Heinz.
Oh, Heinz is coming in. We know Heinz. Heinz baked beans,
Is in
baby.
the Heinz brand ketchup dynasty. Apparently the family moved into politics, go figure. Delivered a speech from the US Senate floor saying, quote, "Ketchup is a condiment. This is one of the most ridiculous regulations I ever heard of. And I suppose I need not add that I do know something about ketchup and relish, or did at one time." The New York Times described the whole thing as the emperor's new condiments, and eventually the USDA withdrew what would come to be known as the ketchup proposal. Except we're still playing this game and we haven't solved
ketchup
the problem. We still
proposal.
gotta cut costs while meeting the letter of the law. So let's look again at our sentence. Kids,
I am surprised that the Heinz guy went against his own company to be like, okay, no, this doesn't count. Come on, guys, unless you're using Heinz ketchup, in which case we use 25% more tomato than the usual competing brands. Therefore, it counts as a serving of
have
vegetables.
to be served 2 full servings of vegetables with their school lunch. If you can't change a condiment into a vegetable, why not try swapping the labels on something else? And that's when they found their new loophole. This word right here, serve. The USDA adopted new guidelines, still
Oh, so they're gonna have the 2 types of vegetables available, but they're not gonna force it onto the plate of the child. So they can say that they've been served a vegetable, but they didn't take it, which means they can reduce waste and reduce costs.
Used today based around the offer versus serve model, which is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of being required to serve a certain helping of vegetables, what if school lunch programs were only required to offer a certain helping of vegetables?
Yep, knew it,
Were making the choice, they could be safely relied on to decline said offer. The defense of that position is that serving vegetables to kids doesn't do much good if the kids are just gonna chuck those vegetables right into the trash. And so this became a major cost-cutting measure. Schools could suddenly keep a bare minimum of produce on hand and justify it in the name of reducing waste by listening to feedback. So was that the end of our ketchup is a vegetable debate? Yeah, at least
still bad.
It was until today. You see, this whole sordid history got me curious. Does ketchup actually have enough tomato in there to count as a serving of vegetable?
No, because it's made up of a ton of stuff. It's a lot of it's tomato, but there's a ton of sugar in there. There's salt. There's gonna be like water and liquids in there.
We're all fine to laugh at how stupid this whole thing.
I don't know what
and
the actual
acknowledge that
percentage
it was
is,
a bit
but
shady as far as cost-cutting measures are concerned. Then again, I've seen the Heinz commercials. They
squeeze more than 25 whole red ripe tomatoes into a bottle.
So I
That's
reached
a
in
lot.
the fridge and pulled out my bottle of
that's a big bottle.
Heinz
Jesus.
tomato ketchup to do some math. Based on info from eatforhealth.gov, a single vegetable serving
There's so
is
much sugar in
75
it, though.
grams or one medium-sized tomato. Now, the ad here says that there are 25 tomatoes in a 40-ounce bottle of ketchup. So you would assume that a whole bottle of ketchup is going to be serving 25 vegetables, right? Not so much. We don't know how big those tomatoes are. They could just be 25 whole red ripe cherry tomatoes. In 2015, Heinz was actually sued in Israel by local ketchup producer Osem on the grounds that they utilized too much high fructose corn syrup in their products.
Oh, America loves high fructose corn syrup. They shove it in literally everything. It's so bad. I don't know if we really have that here, but it's disgusting how much America uses
ketchup under Israeli nutritional standards. Reports from the case estimated that the amount of tomato in this tomato-based product was between 17 and 39%, depending on the lab that was doing the testing. Luckily, the nutrition label for Heinz is much more helpful than the label for something like pink sauce. It tells us that there are 148 grams worth of tomato to make 100 grams of ketchup. And yeah, that might seem weird to have more tomato for less ketchup, but remember
there's
that
wastage,
things
I
lose
guess,
mass as they're cooked. Anyway, if you had a whole
yeah, of course, because a lot of it's made of water, so a lot of it just evaporates.
Bottle of ketchup, that would be about 15 servings of vegetables. It would also be nearly 1,500 calories to get those vegetables, considering all the extra sugar and stuff in there. We're also not accounting
they use
for
so much sugar in it.
bioavailability.
Why do they put so much sugar in ketchup? It's
So
disgusting.
take the estimate with a grain of salt. Anyway, a vegetable is a vegetable, right? So in theory, in food theory, by the numbers, you could argue that by grabbing a bottle of ketchup and chugging away, you were potentially satisfying at least the raw materials quotient of getting some
gross,
vegetables.
but it's not that bad. It could be worse. It could be mayo.
The lawmakers were talking about ketchup packets. So how many packets would the typical student need to eat in order to get a single serving of vegetables based on the USDA proposal?
Nah, I was gonna say that. Fine,
You're
whatever.
looking at 9, 8 1/3 if we're being precise. Hope you brought some tater tots for that huge pool of ketchup. Pizza, meanwhile, yep, still considered to be a vegetable, actually, if there's enough sauce on it. In 2012, the Obama administration unsuccessfully attempted to raise the minimum veggie requirements back up for the first time in like forever. Under guidelines,
I wonder what the Republican defense against that was. Let me tell you, I don't want them serving no veggies to my kids. How dare you force a pepper down my throat?
Proposed in 2010,
Damn you,
aimed at
Obama!
curbing childhood obesity, frozen pizzas of the type typically served by the slice in school lunches could retain their serving of vegetables title if the sauce quotient was bumped up to half a cup of sauce as opposed to just 2 tablespoons. Except yet
Two
again, with
tablespoons?
problems with that. ConAgra, which supplies an estimated 75% of frozen pizza to U.S. schools, argued that over-saucing their product would make the kids not want to eat it, and then they spent $6 million lobbying the government to convince lawmakers of that exact fact. And
Did they ask the kids? I mean, I like a nice saucy pizza. Are you a fan of a nice saucy pizza? I like it where there's a lot of sauce. You know, minimal bread, lots of sauce, lots of cheese. I like that.
School pizza remained the dry, bready square that it's been for decades. Or
So
ConAgra, you could
disgusting.
just go the route that my elementary school did and rebrand the whole thing as cheesy dippers, no sauce required. Boom! Just saved you $6 million in lobbying the
Nice.
government. In the
That's
end,
not
the
serving
point
of
of all
vegetables,
this
though.
is to show you how tricky school lunches really are. There's always this tough back and forth happening between what parents want their kids to eat, what kids actually want to eat, how much schools and governments want to spend to make those sorts of choices possible, and the companies who are involved that turn a profit over whatever the outcome is. So in the end, just remember this one thing. The next time your mom tells you need to eat your vegetables, you say back, I need to eat more of this pizza to get enough tomato paste so it adds up to a full serving. If you manage to get away with that one, you're gonna have yourself a
bait.
great career in politics. But hey,
That's just a theory, a food theory. Thank you guys so much for watching. I stream on my main channel every single day. I'd love if you go and check it out and subscribe over there. And also, if you want to see more food theories, please let me know. I'd love to do stuff like this because I love food. It's great.